So, welcome to this presentation to talk about efficiency over hours, work less, and even better. I'm Marga Master, your heartfelt CFO, and I've had so many requests to talk around time management that I'm just crazy, crazy excited to talk about this. I really simpled it down into a way that I hope will speak to you. The trap that many therapists fall into is just that if I work a little bit more, I'll get better. Or if I do a little bit more is going to come. It's always about push and force. And it's something that we just think innately that if we do more, we're going to get better. It's almost like a default setting that we're all built on. But more hours doesn't always mean more success. It often leads to burnout, missed financial clarity, growth that feels unsustainable. I was actually working with somebody this morning, a VIP day around the business plan, and he didn't even feel that the growth was happening.
Mm,
He felt that because he had so many different businesses, it was actually the opposite that was happening to him. He was calling himself lazy. It was really, really interesting. And not only was he missing the clarity and he was at burnout, but he was actually listening, he was actually missing the key points around his time. So instead of asking how can we fit more in, what's actually moving the practice forward? So in this client's case, it's that he was going too wide in the practice. Too many things were happening at the same time that if you solve everything for everybody, we solve nothing. And if you remember when you solved the practice, like I remember one of our first mental health clients, I think they had like over 20 different types of therapy that they solved. I remember when we were doing the income statement and there was a need to actually hyper analyze it. And it was like, maybe it was like 27. It was a lot. And
mm,
what was happening is that the team that was being built to service these industries is what was depleting the profit. It's not that the profit wasn't happening, it's that the services were too wide. But the benefit of the exercise of what's actually moving the practice forward was really the key. I think it was out of the 27, we got down to like 12. And then I think we kind of like negotiated at like 7, which was still high, but way better than 27. So your practice is a balanced diet, right? I'm sure everybody tells you, and you hear about this on the internet and maybe through somebody that, you have to eat healthy and balanced and all of these things. So time boundaries are your protein, clear pricing is your healthy fats, and smart systems are your vitamins. And I want to say that again, smart systems are your vitamins. So actually to counterbalance what we talked about of the burnout is where you're going to now actually put in the systems and the boundaries to put that in.
mm.
And I'm going to tell you a story. We have a client, when she started with us, she worked 8 a.m. to 9:30. She prided herself in the schedule. And she was coming from a big W-2 job.
Mm,
And just the fact that she can work remotely from home and do it was a big deal. Now, when we found her and when we met, they were building this beautiful basement and they were reconstructing, I think, some areas. I forgot what it was. And when I told her that she could deduct the basement if the business was there by the square footage, she was like, wow. So she didn't really care how many hours that she worked, but it didn't dawn on her until she worked from home that how many hours was really happening. So what happened? She didn't have the protein, she didn't have the healthy fats, and she wasn't taking her vitamins. If anything, she was going the other way now because it was an awareness. So she was like gaining on taxes, but she was really crippled on her time.
mm.
So lots of times what happens is that we think it's taxes. It's really not taxes. It's our time and cash flow. I want to say that again. It's our time and cash flow. We
Yeah.
work on with our clients how if you spend more time in your genius zone or area of expertise, that's where the increase of income. It's not always taking on more clients, it's your area of expertise and working on your rate. And I'm going to tell you a story. So the client I was working on today in a business plan, we were talking about his rate, and he was fluctuating around 150, and then he was inching, not walking, towards between 2 and 250. Now, to raise your rates between the 2 and the 250, it's the same skill, it's the same jump, it is the same stress and angst around it.
Mhm.
Because think about it, right? If you did the 200, 3 months later, or that 3 months later, you're not going to be happy. So you're now going to have to do it again. And now when you have to do it again, we're going through this whole process again. So why not? Let's get our ducks in order and think, what are we going to do around our time? Now, it could just be not only around private pay, it could be dropping some insurances and also only using some insurances, having connected time with your biller around what's really happening.
Yeah.
Now, this actually reminds me of another story. We had one client, I think it was like over 10, I think it was like 9. It was like an odd number around there of insurances. And she was like, I don't know, like someone asked for this, so we did it. Asked for this, and we did it. Asked for this, and then we did it. So that's what happened. And then the list is like up and up and up and up. But it wasn't serving her. She didn't have her brown cheese. She was not eating her protein. So you get where this is going? Just
Yeah.
take the one step. What efficiency actually does look like? Spending few hours in the weeds, setting clear financial benchmarks. So, what are financial benchmarks? It could be your hourly rate. It could be dropping certain insurances. It doesn't necessarily have to be a benchmark. I made a certain amount of money, which actually brings me to a different story. So, in this business plan, it was really fabulous experience this morning. And he associated a marketing plan with SEO, paid ads. He didn't realize that his marketing plan could be joint ventures, collaborating, where it's going to bring him closer to his more of his ideal clients for these appointments than
Mm.
SEO or paid ads that's going to go drink you, that's going to basically have you sink in the water. So you, as long as you're getting to your ideal clients, that is your that is your plan of marketing. Now, why does this matter into your financial benchmarks? Because if you're getting to your ideal client faster with more targeted of a marketing plan, your financial benchmarks are going to be even better than you expect. And hear that again. You're going to outsmart your financial benchmarks because you could be doing it faster and better. And over time, these are the types of things that you can measure. So charging what feels like what reflects your value, delegating low return tasks, and saying no without guilt. It took me forever to learn that, to say no without guilt. Why? Because I love what I do. And telling people no is not what I wanted. But what I know clients did want was my area of expertise. And when I found that place inside me, I was able to say no to other people. But until you get there, saying no can be hard. For example, I know a lot of mental health owners in general, and a lot of our clients like to do uh, donation type services where I forget the word, philanthropy type, I think that's what's called, where you don't charge for the services.
Pro bono
Pro
service.
bono. Okay. I couldn't think of the word. And it's been killing the schedule because they're also prime time. So
Well,
go ahead.
we can limit that, do what we can afford, right? I mean,
Do what you could afford.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But also remember, and we were actually doing this together where looking at the prime times of who are in those times in those slots. So for instance, let's say in those prime times, you have somebody who's not at your ideal rate or maybe at the lowest insurance rate. You may also have more control over your calendar of prime rates to people who are paying your prime rates, the prime times to the prime rates.
Oh,
That's what.
yes, yes, yes. So the person's not at a prime time. And the thing is, that was the thing that they had to sacrifice, was that they couldn't be at a prime time when I needed that for someone else. If I ever need a slot for someone else and they're in the way, they have to move. They have to
There you go.
understand that. So I'm not going to do that. But they also replaced a bad insurance situation that was draining time from me. And I made a decision that I got plenty of reward out of working with this person who was motivated to work with me. But I was drained by the insurance situation that was not working and not paying. And I just said, you know what? I'd rather just work with you for nothing than to keep getting drained by fighting with insurance.
So that's time boundaries at your
Yeah,
at your
yeah.
finest. That's time boundaries of knowing what's happening where. And him and I were actually having a conversation, and his practice was to evaluate what was happening with the calendar. And what we learned by looking at the calendar is that his ideal client was coming in. It wasn't a matter of that the right time clients weren't coming in. It was more about shifting of times, and it wasn't necessarily a problem, and he needed more quality people to come in. So there's a lot of value with doing this to make the most of your time. Now, if you're a mom or a dad that has kids at home, these things become really, really detrimental because you want time for your family, you want a balance, and there's not a
Mm.
normalcy out there to do this, unfortunately. You know, when my kids were small, a lot of these things, it was like taboo until I made it okay for myself to do this and say, you know what? Life is okay outside of business and to be able to still make a salary. So, what efficiency looks like is spending fewer hours in the weeds, even if it's 30 minutes a week, right? That you're reducing from. Everything matters over time. Setting clear financial benchmarks, like we talked about, charging what reflects your value, delegating low return tasks, and saying no without guilt. Now, if you have time, if you have things that you want to add to this list, let's add to it. Or if you're listening to this and you're like, that looks good, start with one and see how
Well,
that goes.
one thing that came up for me as I'm listening to this is I had a new client scheduled. He missed his appointment by oversleeping. And I was so pissed because this has just been happening to me over and over again. And I said, I have to change this. And I texted him back that that he needs to know I charge for missed appointments. And this was not okay that he overslept. Okay. I may be chasing him away, but I don't care. I need to stop this from happening. And I need to put my foot down. I need to change my own energy. And so this is what I was doing. I was setting a boundary and saying, it's not okay that you missed this appointment. And if you make an appointment with me, you need to let me know if you can't make it. I need to know in advance. And that's how I work. And the
But what I
next
also
person,
hear, but
yeah,
what I
go ahead.
also hear is that you're teaching the patient or client a very valuable lesson. You can't just disregard other people's time. You're actually doing them a disservice if you don't tell them this because they're just going to continue to do it with other people and
Yeah,
it's
it's
going.
disrespectful. And it's really disrespecting my time. And I have enough respect for me to be pissed when that happens. So I kind of took that pissed energy and set a boundary with it.
It's awesome. So why does this matter when your time and your money
And
work
guess
together?
what? He's calling back to make another appointment. So I didn't chase him away. But now he'll keep that appointment.
Right, right. He's going to have to set multiple alarms.
And he's going to have to set a limit for himself because this guy changed appointments twice before nailing something. And now I'm not going to let him do that. I'm going to say, no, I have no more room. Sorry. You got a slot. That's your slot.
But you know what I also get from what he just said? You know, when we were looking at his calendar, I just said that we saw there was a lot of shifts in time. But he also realized when people were taking advantage of the shifts in times too, where it led him into another boundary.
Yeah.
So that's really, really, really powerful. When your time and your money work together, you invest intentionally, You eliminate overworking cycles. You build resilience into your business. Efficiency equals sustainability. Now, none of this happens overnight. It's being privy to it and knowing it, and over time, trying it with one client, trying it with one step. And then it becomes easier and easier. And then it becomes your policy, where it's on your onboard paperwork, where it's less to explain and more of expected. Okay. Where these things happen because your time is your most valuable asset. I want to say that again. Stop demeaning your time. It is your number one asset, because many of you out there who are building teams, if you don't value your time, the team is not, and they're taking on those same traits. And I see it all the time where owners are complaining about things that the team does, but it's because the owner is modeling that. And we have to model behavior that we want our team to keep on, as it's a reflection of our values and culture that we're bringing people into our home, which is basically what business is about. So again, why does this matter? You're going to spend intentionally, you're going to invest intentionally, eliminate overworking cycles, all these crevices of things. This is where the profit is too. Okay. It's not always more, it's not always push, it's not always do more, force. It's around these things too, that over time you find yourself with more time. And if you want to exercise, I hear a lot of my clients wondering how they're going to get their health back intact. You get your health back intact by making your time the most valuable thing in the world and literally nailing it down bit by bit. So let's build the resiliency, and the efficiency is the sustainability, doing more in less time. So remember the example I was saying, how this client, oh, actually, I don't remember if I said this example. So this client in business, what we established was, with building the team, he really wasn't far away from bringing another person on. But what was hurting him unconsciously was that he was kind of fluctuating in the rate. So with working on the stability of the rates, what we agreed on was one of his tasks was look with the type of person that he needed to hire, how much it costs, so that he does it once. Okay, once, and then he doesn't have to do it again. And that becomes his baseline. So let's say the range to hire somebody is 25 to 35 an hour. Budget in the 35, and now we're at 150. Okay, now to get there, if 125 and going actual is where you are, do it. At least you're covering your costs, but you're also not losing, because the 100 you were okay with as your base rate. So let's reflect and reset. Where are your hours going? Where is your energy leaking? What would shift if you had more time and clarity? Would it be time with your kids? Would it be a vacation? Would it be sleeping? Would it be your protein? What would it be exactly? And wherever that is, it's okay. But what we want to do is reflect that and start to see the vision behind that. Because the vision behind that, what does that mean? It's stuff that you're looking to do, your goals, your things that you want to do, actually, I don't even want to say goals, hobbies. For me, for instance, sometimes it's not always being about active. It's actually about catching up on sleep. It could be around, I like to write poetry and just seeing where my mind is going to take me. It may not be always education stuff or working more on the business or hanging out with my family. It could be stuff that I like to do that helps me just feel my best. So, what's that trait for you? For my daughter, she hasn't in a while, she's done guitar, and somebody brought that up. And when she started guitar, there's a whole different thing that happens in her body. So maybe you're kind of like, I haven't had hobbies in a long time. This is where we need to reset and think about that. So this isn't about doing less for less, it's about doing less for more. And I want to close this fact also is that, so when we were talking about the time this morning, he actually talked about an example of where he had to clarify it to somebody. and he felt like it was an arguing and justifying. And what I said to him was, when you find yourself in those conversations, that is your direct cue that chances are that's a no client. And a no client is a way more uh, needed exercise than an ideal client, because those no clients are time suckers, and we want to be able to have a practice that's going to um, bring us up. Now, there are times when we find clients in there that we can bring on because we can elevate them. And even though it's a little bit drained, it's a thing to do, or maybe you're at the practice of where you're still learning, that's okay. But as long as you're going in into an awareness instead of from a desperation or from a need, then it's a different place to be. But you want to know where you're coming from the baseline for that. So make space to breathe, and let's talk about this so that your time, your energy, and your income is not lost, and build a plan that actually supports you. I'll be honest, in this morning's business plan, I had so much fun, and where that practice is going, I was actually like happily shocked, and I'm really, really stoked with this business owner, what he came up with. And not only am I stoked for that, I'm stoked for the family, and I'll tell you why. Because when people see how they can build the business around family, it's a whole different way of operating. And I know when I was growing up, when I was starting the business, growing up, when I was evolving in business, there was all these taboos, and it's still out there, but we don't have to have that. So make your time, your energy, and your income not lost, make it a priority, and plan for what supports you. So I hope you enjoyed this. As always, any questions, let me know, and we'll talk soon.